Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Warren Sutton, and I will serve as your MC for today. It is my great honor to be back at Michigan, to be back at U of M, and to, most importantly, be back at IOE. I thank you all for coming out to enjoy this celebration. I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful time. I myself am a two-time graduate of U of M, graduating in IOE with a master's in 2006 and ultimately with my PhD in 2010. They've asked me to give you all a couple of housekeeping reminders. So the restrooms are located across from the elevators on the ground floor. I would direct you towards them as I will be using them shortly myself, but I think it's that way. For Wi-Fi, we ask that you use the M-Guest network and agree to the terms there. In case of emergency, please find the exits at the back of the rooms and follow the instructions of our staff. We also want to let you know that our volunteers are here if you have any accessibility issues that you need assistance with. You all should have on your tables a booklet with a bookmark and a business card there, which both have a QR code. If you scan that QR code, it will give you information on the program that we will have for today. If you don't have your cell phone, there are printed copies available at the registration table. Just for your awareness, this program is being recorded, so we ask that you silence your cell phones so we can have an uninterrupted presentation. Thank you. Also, photos will be taken throughout the day, and you'll be able to find those later on the IOE department's Flickr account. If you did not get a chance this morning, I'd ask that you would visit our student poster presentations off to the right here. Our students have been hard at work with various number of projects. I got through a total of 1 today in 20 minutes, but I'll be a little bit more efficient with my time later on. But I ask that you visit them as they've all been working hard. So I want to get a sense of who we have here with us. So by a round of applause, do we have current and former faculty members and staff here? All right, all right. How about alumni? Very nice. And current students? Very good, very good. So it looks like all 3 of those groups are represented well. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you all. If you guys have not got to meet with some of the alumni or the current faculty and staff, please do reach out and meet with those folks. We hope that you find your time during this day to connect with each other, and we're excited to welcome you here. Now, I would like to introduce our current chair of IOE, Dr. Julie Ivey, our Vivian L. Carpenter, Collegiate Professor of Industrial and Operations Engineering. Let's welcome her with a round of applause.
Thank you, Dr. Sutton. Good morning. I am so excited to see all of you here today and to see a year of preparations come to fruition. First, I really just like to thank Tyra for her vision coming to light and how amazing this is. So if we could just acknowledge her. On behalf of IOE, I'd like to welcome you to 70 years and our celebration of this time. To all of our IOE alumni and emeritus faculty, welcome home. We're so excited to have you back, and we're really looking forward to having you stay connected. I'm gonna do a slight variation of what Dr. Sutton just did, because I'm gonna ask you to move. I like people to get up and stand. So first, emeritus professors. If we have any emeritus professors in the room and you're able, please stand. Sorry, sorry. So some of you might see some of your professors, and now you know where to find them and reach out to them. If we have PhD alums in the room, could you please stand? Look around and see your classmate. And you can stand more than one time if you have more than one degree. So if you are master's alums, if you could please stand. So look around, see who your friends and your classmates are that you may not have seen. Okay. And then bachelor's IOE alums, please stand. Okay. And I'm standing too. Okay. Thank you. Great. And then last, I wanted to ask our emeritus staff, like I know we have several staff who come back to celebrate with us. If any emeritus staff who are here could please stand. You're retired. Thank you. Thank you. So you now have a sense of where some of our alums and our previous connected people in the department are. So reach out to them. This is an opportunity, I think, for our current students, our current faculty, to reconnect with each other. So we've been looking forward to this for some time. You know, as IOEs, we strive to make the world a better place. We try to solve the most complex problems that the world is faced with. And as our outstanding lineup of speakers will demonstrate throughout the day, some of the impacts that we're having on those challenges and where there are opportunities. And you'll see how far-reaching IOE is through today's topics. We have a wide range of panelists and speakers who will share to us and kind of highlight these different thrusts within IOE: data analytics, optimization, stochastic systems, human system integration, and with various applications in business operations, health, human safety, energy and sustainability, mobility and transportation, and more. You'll see the gamut as you look at what amazing work is being done in IOE, what our alumni are doing, and then what our future is as you look at what the students' posters are. We hope that you'll really enjoy these topics, get the opportunity to connect with our students. We're bringing our expertise to some of the challenging problems this year. And then this year, I wanted to acknowledge that we have amazing alumni that we're celebrating as well. The college has, our alum, IOE alum, has been awarded the College of Engineering's Alumni Medal Award this year. This is the college's highest honor that is awarded to an alumni who has achieved extraordinary distinction in their careers and brought honor to Michigan engineering through leadership and impact. We are thrilled to recognize John Holt as the alumni medalist and welcome his wife Bev and their family with us today. Let's just acknowledge them. Maybe we can stand. Nearly 60 years ago, Michigan gave John the support he needed to stay in school, and he's been giving back ever since. Today, John and Bev have funded scholarships, teaching awards, professorship in engineering, as well as supported students in programs across the university. Their children, Rob Holt and Carrie Molina, also IOE alums, along with their spouses, have continued this tradition, making this a truly family legacy of impact. Please join me in celebrating John, Bev, and the entire Holt family for their extraordinary commitment to Michigan. In addition, over lunch, oh, there you are, okay. Thank you. Sorry, I can't really see from here. Over lunch, you will hear from our other awardee, Mary Williamson. She is the 2025 Distinguished Alumni Merit Awardee for IOE. This award is given annually to an IOE alum recognizing professional excellence, leadership, and service within their field. For us, John and Mary represent the best of IOE. They are a testament to the impact of 70 years of IOE, and their impact blazes a trail for our future. Join me as we celebrate them, as we honor our past, and today we will also celebrate our present and look forward to the future throughout the day. So grow me as we congratulate both Mary and John. Now, as we celebrate our future, we would like to acknowledge some major milestones. We've had some major retirements that are coming this year. Rod Capps and Chris Conrad have been longtime members of our IOE community. Rod retired on Tuesday, officially, after 33 years with IOE. I'm pretty sure he's not here today because he's officially retired this week, and we're not going to come back. Chris will be retiring at the end of the year after 40 years with us. I'd like us to acknowledge their service, and I'm sure if you've been here, you've known them. In addition, this year, Professor Tom Armstrong has recently retired and become emeritus. A symposium will be held in his honor on November 4th. So we look forward to some of you coming back and joining us for that. And then finally, Professor Larry Seifert will retire and become emeritus faculty member at the end of May. We'd like to congratulate them both and celebrate them. Now, I would like to introduce you to Dean Karen Thole. She is the Robert J. Vlasic Dean of Engineering at the University of Michigan. Dean Thole joined Michigan Engineering just 1 year ago. In her time at Michigan, she's engaged with every department. In fact, she's done a round robin where she has spent a day in the life of every department. During her time with IOE, her day with IOE, I believe she became a believer. And she's an inner IOE in her heart. Now, this was further influenced by the IOE trifecta that we had at the College of Engineering commencement ceremony. So this year, uniquely, the College of Engineering undergraduate student speaker was an IOE now alumna, Bella Wash. The College of Engineering graduate student speaker, now an alumna, Lena Garabe, was the graduate speaker. And the COE graduation speaker was President Harriet Nembhard, an IOE alumna. So we'd like to give them a little round of applause because I think that the amazing impact they had kind of made the whole world believers in IOE. But now please welcome me as we bring Dean Thole to the stage for words. So welcome, Dean Thole.
All right, Julie stole a lot of my thunder here, but I will try to carry on. Good morning, everyone. It is really wonderful to see you all here today and to welcome you back home in many cases, or welcome you to this celebration for the students, the alumni, the faculty, the emeriti faculty, and the staff, of course. And so, this is a major milestone that IOE has reached, 70 years, which is pretty amazing. It's a great milestone because, and in its time, we really celebrate all of the incredible things that it's done, the people's lives it has shaped, and the extraordinary impacts of engineering that they have made and on the world. I want to thank Julie Simmons Ivy for that very warm introduction, and more importantly, for her leadership of the department. Julie, under your guidance, the IOE department continues to shine, and you make sure it's front and center in my world all the time. So this is the season for rankings, right? So the College of Engineering just came out as number 5, according to U.S. News and World Report for best undergraduate programs. Of course, The college can only do what we can do without having really strong departments like IOE. The college ranking would be meaningless. So I want to congratulate Julie and all of the faculty and staff for making the IOE department ranked number 3 in the undergraduate program. Great job. And also, they have the number 2 graduate ranked program in industrial engineering. So many congratulations on that. And you know, this is just one measure, but certainly that measure wouldn't be there without the quality, the innovation, and really the dedication of all the faculty and staff in the department. So we really are very proud of the department. One of the things that makes IOE so unique is the breadth and flexibility of this degree. And Julie already mentioned the many, many areas that IOE touches. But, you know, this IOE degree really opens many doors to a variety of paths. And, you know, as Julie said, I've only been in my job for a year, and I've been meeting many IOE alums who are highly placed, doing extremely well, making important impacts in the world. And so this department has much to be proud of in terms of the alumni who graduate. And we've already heard about John Holt. I want to also, you know, congratulate John, and we're going to celebrate him throughout the day, including tonight, on all of his contributions for impacting the world by giving him the college's highest honor. So I'm excited to celebrate him tonight and all day. We're also very proud, as Julie already mentioned, of our commencement speaker, who was Harriet Nembhard. Harriet, you have to stand up. All right, let's give Harriet. President Nembhard, I call her Harriet because Harriet and I go way back. I've known her for so long, and she is the president of Harvey Mudd. Again, an amazing thing for what you can do with an IOE degree. There are leaders from this department in healthcare, in business, and they've all started here at Michigan, and we're incredibly proud of them. So just as important as the work that's done is the community. Michigan IOE is more than a department. It's really a network of people who share ideas, mentor students, and stay connected long after graduation. The connection between alumni, current students, and faculty is one of our greatest strengths. And gatherings like this today remind us how important it is to maintain those connections. I really want to speak to the students on that part. You know, start forming your connections now. You have an incredibly powerful network at your hands. I think we all know that the landscape in higher ed is changing dramatically. We have AI coming on. We have federal changes and other factors. We are continuing to adapt to these new times. Later today, our faculty are going to share the vision for the next 70 years, highlighting the groundbreaking research that they're doing, new areas of growth, and the trends that are going to define the education programs of IOE as well. It's exciting to see what comes next. You know, Julie mentioned that I went on this world tour of the college last year in my first year as dean, and IOE was actually my last visit. Save the last for best, of course. And the students' poster competition was probably the highlight. Now, don't tell other departments this. I really did enjoy their visits as well. But the IOE student department, the IOE students' poster session was amazing. So I certainly understand Dr. Warren spending 20 minutes on one poster. Those posters, the students had so much passion when they presented their work. They talked about inefficiencies in factories. They talked about impacting healthcare. They talked about propelling athletics teams using data analytics. Now, I'm still trying to use those algorithms in trying to figure out my ESPN college pick'ems on Saturday. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but I know and actually I think there's money to be made on that as well. So the ideas that these students are really coming up with here can only be done at Michigan, and I'm really proud of the students here. So we celebrate 70 years of IOE today. We honor the legacy of those who built the department. We recognize the people who keep it strong, and we look forward and are excited about what comes ahead. I want to thank everyone today who helped make this celebration possible, for inviting me here. I feel very honored to be here in front of you all, saying a few words and being given this time. I want to do a special shout out for the IOE Advisory Board, because I know they were instrumental in planning this wonderful event. Thank you all for just participating. Congratulations, happy anniversary to IOE, and go Blue.
Thank you, Dean Thole, and thank you, Dr. Harvey. I am happy at this time to introduce our alumni panel, Transforming Industries Through Industrial and Operations Engineering. Dr. Mark Daskin is the Claude W. Johnson Collegiate Professor Emeritus and former chair of the department, serving as chair from 2010 to 2018. He will be the moderator for our panel, so we will let him take over in introducing our panelists. As they begin to come towards the stage, I'd like to issue an apology to President Nembhard, as I served as her informal Uber driver this morning, and I was recalling how I remember my commencement speaker in 2010 being none other than President Barack Obama. And in that, I said, there were some other speakers for like the Rackham graduation, but no one ever remembers those. Dr. Nembhard, we will remember you.
That's funny. That's so funny.
Okay, good morning, everyone. As our panelists get seated, I want to welcome you to our first panel, which is Transforming Industries Through IOE. We'll be hearing from an outstanding group of alumni leaders who will share how their IOE training has shaped their careers, how they've navigated industry challenges, and what lies ahead in their fields. Here's how we're going to work things today. We'll start with quick introductions, then move into themed questions, and leave plenty of time for all of your questions as well. So let's begin with introductions. I'll ask each of you to just give us your name, the degrees that you got from IOE, and your graduation years, if you feel like you want to share those. If you don't, that's also okay. And your current company and the role that you play in that company. So why don't we begin here?
Sounds good. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Eva Dong. I graduated from IOE in 2014. I majored in financial engineering, which was a program between IOE and Ross and Department of Math. Had a wonderful time there. Right now, I work at Google Cloud, and I lead our AI value realization, which is a service we provide to our clients to unlock the full potential of AI.
Good morning. I'm Jackie Lapinski. I have a bachelor's and master's from IOE 2000 and 2001, and currently serve as the lead of performance excellence or continuous improvement for Trinity Health Michigan. That includes 9 hospitals across the state of Michigan. Most of them have names or had names, St. Joe's, St. Mary's, as well as medical groups, including IHA here locally.
And I'm Wendi Latko. I got my PhD here in 1997. I specialized in ergonomics. I currently am the Vice President of Environment, Health, Safety, and Sustainability at Xerox, as well as the Chief Sustainability Officer there.
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here too. Shannon McGuire. I received my bachelor's of IOE in 1996. I work for Walt Disney World. I'm the director of food and beverage and merchandise. I have a fancy title, but basically it's optimization and supply chain. I have an analytics team and I have a supply chain team for food and beverage and merchandise.
Good morning, all. I'm Harriet Nembhard. I finished my master's and my PhD in IOE in 1994. I'm currently president of Harvey Mudd College, which is an undergraduate-only liberal arts STEM college in Southern California.
Great. Thank you, everybody. So our first question is for all of our panelists, and that is, how has your IOE education contributed to your ability to innovate and lead changes in your industry? And Wendi, since you're front and center, why don't we start with you? And then we'll work our way around this way.
Sure. I gave this question a lot of thought, and I think it really comes down to three things that are inherent to IOE: systems, processes, and people. You know, IOE is all about systems thinking, and, you know, increasingly, the world is a very complex place, and, you know, the years of being able to address things in a siloed manner are long over. So that ability to think from a systems perspective and see the interaction between different aspects of the business is really critical to both recognizing and implementing change. And, you know, right along with that is process. I think IOEs are very, you know, uniquely strong in process discipline, and being able to utilize that in planning and implementing change is also very critical. And then finally, we have that ability to really see the people aspect as well. There's no way change can be successful without having the teams that are impacted on board, whether that's within your own company, your clients, or wherever. So those three things I see as really the keys to successfully leading change.
Great.
I didn't know which way we were going with the circle.
We're going to go this
All
way.
right.
You're next, Shannon.
Okay, I'm ready. No, I mean, a lot, exactly what you said, I think. The big thing for me is you can really plug us in anywhere. That's what I've found. I've been with Walt Disney World for 25 years, and I think the ability to, you know, you can show up and be, okay, I'm going to be the project manager over this work, or I'm going to be the financial analyst in this work. And just your ability to have such a broad range of problem solving capabilities and be able to be plugged into any kind of problem. I frequently have seen, I'll show up in meetings and we're very fortunate. We have a lot of leadership that believes in industrial engineering and have us in a lot of different disciplines. But when we all get together, there's always this ability to kind of look holistically, come up with kind of the right approach that drives kind of flexibility, adaptability, but thinking through what that looks like. And then from a leadership perspective, I think just knowing that you've had the organizational behavior education, you've got the human factors side, you approach with a people mindset when you're thinking about those solutions, and that doesn't always come through. So I think that's an additional unique quality that we bring.
Well, of course, my industry, my career has been in higher education, and I've applied industrial and operations engineering work to this field as well. I'll just say that, of course, it's in the air, right? That we are at a time right now in higher ed. We are at a particular moment, though, where I see industrial and operations engineering as having, bringing a skill set and a background to understand systems and people that is so urgently needed right now. The way that we're prepared has been a large part of me being able to navigate and lead my team and lead my college at a time where there are challenges, to be able to see the systems view, to be able to hold how we make things better for people as paramount in our decision making has just been vital. And the background that I have had from industrial operations engineering to know the technical frameworks and theories for doing that has really helped me to be able to lead, and I hope encourage and inspire my team, my college and other colleagues at a time when that is just really sorely needed.
Eva?
Sure. I echo the other fellow panelists, feel the same way. I think for me personally, I appreciate IOE helped me build the confidence to tackle undefined problems. So I feel like the undefined problems are the best problem. I remember when I graduated from IOE, from financial engineering, cybersecurity was a field that just become emerging in 2013, and data science as a discipline just also become emerging. So I was like, isn't that be cool to become a data scientist in cybersecurity, which like not many people have done that job. That job title just start emerging in very few tech companies in the Bay Area. So that was one of the choices I made. And during the time at Visa Cybersecurity Analytics, we were one of the first in the world to develop machine learning algorithms to proactively detect cybersecurity threats. The difficult part of that job, there is nothing to copy from academia perspective or industry perspective. So I remember working with my colleagues day in and day night, trying hundreds, thousands of different algorithms to tackle one problem, and we never know which one works the best. We have to put everything into test and just hope nothing happens, because in cybersecurity, if nothing happens, that's the best thing happened. So that was terrifying 2 years, but wonderful experience. And fast forward to my current job, so Google just opened this new service called AI value realization. It's a new area where offering services to our clients because we see the need of AI value in the clients. AI is no longer a hype. We need AI to work and bring actual benefits to us. So again, a lot of undefined problem. I have to tackle things piece by piece. I feel like when I joined Google, we're just talking about agentic. Okay, 3 months later, we're talking about multi-agentic system. And then just 2 weeks ago, Google just announced the AP2, which is agentic system between the merchant and the payment. It just announced like 2 weeks ago, and all my clients is asking me questions in the last 2 weeks all about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm such an expert in this. So I have to learn every day. And for all of that, I appreciate IOE helped me to have the confidence to tackle all these problems head on, face on, and first on.
Well, it's a challenge to go last because I agree with every one of the comments. I think what I would add uniquely is what I have really loved about having the IOE background is being able to have impact from the day after I graduated and being able to find work where you can really bring that innovation, bring that customer-centered perspective and options and change and be able to implement that all the way to now working with a large system, looking at that at a leadership level. How do you take decisions and help bring data, bring options, bring practical perspectives, and then also help bring that right to the front line where we deliver care. So I think that those IOE concepts really apply at all levels, which is great too.
Thanks. Thank you very much for sharing these perspectives. I want to just piggyback on one thing that Shannon said. She talked about the ability to plug an IOE graduate into a variety of roles. The other thing that I found is that IOE graduates can go into many different industries. I think that's represented by the people on our panel here. And back when I was chair of the IOE department, we had people on our advisory board. One person managed several $1 trillion of assets at a financial company. Another person was vice president of Open Table. And a third person owned a wine manufacturing company. So there was a very large variety of roles that people in IOE could take. The one thing I would wonder a little bit about is something that Harriet said. I can't believe there are challenges in higher education now. Really? Okay.
One or two.
All right. So let's talk about some of those challenges, though. Everybody faces uncertainty in different ways. How does an IOE mindset help you plan in the face of uncertainty? And Shannon, let me begin with you. As I'm sure that there's been a lot of impact of uncertainty in terms of tariffs. I know my younger daughter has talked to me about that repeatedly. She's in a brand management role, rolling out a new product, sourcing it overseas, and every morning she seems to wake up and face a new challenge in terms of tariffs.
Every day right now. It's a constantly changing situation. I think when I think about from an IOE perspective, what it does is it allows us to think about, we're always in the game of what if. So everything we're doing, we're having to frame up and try to provide all of our leadership some sort of framework to work from and make decisions. And so we're building models that have sensitivity analysis, that have flexibility, so that we can build, any kind of question. And I loved what Eva said, like, you're solving things that you don't know the answer to, and they're changing constantly. So you have all of these different variables you've got to figure out. But at the same time, the way that we kind of go into these problems is knowing that anything can change. And so you have to be realistic in how you build a framework, and that you know that you have to build it to be flexible. And so you can, hopefully, it is tough to keep up right now with the way things are changing in the tariff world, but you do have the ability to kind of play out all those different scenarios and give leadership the best possible framework to make decisions from.
Okay, great. Jackie, what about in healthcare?
Hardly any change happening. Things are just, both with patients and the needs changing, the technologies and the care offerings changing, and then funding, and at the federal, at the state level, and those needs really all affecting what happens day to day in healthcare. So, I think of two things. One is just the systems thinking. That really thinking about not just what happens in a hospital, which is a traditional view of how we look at healthcare, but what even happens in the community? What's available through community partners? What's available through food pantries, things like that? And that all affects then the patient and the community all the way through the continuum of care. And so being able to think about that from a systems view, how all those pieces connect, being able to, just as Shannon said, model different scenarios and understand, because it's probably not quite as fluid as the tariff situation, but even right now at the federal level, at the state level in Michigan, we don't know day to day how to plan and forecast for what we can expect for reimbursement. And there are a lot of variables. Creating the models that can help us make those decisions and then be able to fulfill those across the system and across the continuum, that's where IOE comes in.
So before we turn to Harriet, let me just ask you a quick follow-up question. Have you seen any impact of uncertainty due to the whole vaccine environment that we're facing right now?
Well, we see that at all levels, both with our patients and the questions that they're bringing to providers. We also see it with our own colleagues and providers who are also bringing those same questions. And so I think trying to be a steady voice of fact, of data, of science is the best we can do. But we absolutely see that, and it has an impact on the demand. It has an impact on the time, and overall on the trust of healthcare. And that has been probably the most foundational challenge of just some of, not just vaccines, but all the other scientific healthcare rumors that are spreading.
Okay, Harriet, I joked about there not being any challenges in higher education, but do you want to elaborate on a few of the ones that you face?
Well, I think they're out in the open, right? I mean, at this point, the business side of higher ed has really been front and center in our country, right? We are talking about one of the pillars of our civilization. When you talk about higher education, just as we would alongside a free press and a judicial system that is fair and impartial, right? All of these now are under stress. And how do we address an environment that is changing and has so many demands in such a rapid way? So this is my third year as president of Harvey Mudd. And I was talking about some of these challenges with my board chair, who described them as that they've been high experience years, right? So these past 2 years have brought a lot of experience. And what my team and I did over the summer is that we took the month of June to kind of just step back for a moment, look at where we had been, and think about how we could plan, not only plan for the future, but really help to guide our college community forward. And we turned to the work of adaptive leadership by Harvard professors Heifetz and Linsky. Is anyone familiar with Heifetz's work, adaptive leadership? Well, it really has a lot of parallels to industrial and operations engineering, is what I realized in turning to this discipline and to their frameworks. You know, Heifetz in adaptive leadership, one of the main principles is to distinguish your problem types. He describes them as the difference between technical problems and adaptive challenges. Technical problems have solutions with known information. Adaptive challenges are more messy. And I started thinking about, in our domain, we have similar descriptions or similar ways of thinking about some of these things. We might think of optimization models with specific constraints, or we might think of things that we need to turn to when the problems are more messy, simulation or heuristics or design of experiments, right? But we started thinking through adaptive leadership on the problem, the issue of college affordability, right? And this is tremendous, not only at Harvey Mudd, which is getting very close to 6 figures all in, tuition, room, and board, and how do we make that affordable, worth every penny, and yet that is a high commitment. How do we make Harvey Mudd more affordable? When we look at college affordability then, there are technical problems. What happens if we raise or lower tuition or hold tuition by a certain percentage point, right? We can solve that with spreadsheets. But when we want to understand what it really means for every student, every family who's making this commitment to really thrive, that's more of an adaptive challenge. We need to understand from a systems view, not only the cost, but resources that are available, from job shadowing and internship opportunities to food security, right? So there you're looking at more of a systems view. Heifetz with adaptive leadership talks about getting on the balcony. Again, taking a systems view of a problem. So, you know, we have, as a team, embarked on this journey to really more deeply understand Heifetz's work and to study that work, to compare it and hang on industrial engineering principles is something that I've done and shared with my team. But the same way of thinking about problems that we have done with college affordability, we are doing with other areas, with climate change education, with how we want to look at our campus conversations, right? To build community is a systems challenge, an adaptive leadership challenge. And I think having this sort of background and thinking about the challenges that we face in this very rigorous, disciplined way, leaning on our strengths as engineers and bringing in, being curious about other disciplines and bringing them into the problems as well, is something that we can always do and have a strength in doing as industrial engineers.
Great, thank you. I like that parallel between industrial engineering and adaptive leadership. So looking forward, I wanted to ask, how are emerging technologies or sustainability initiatives reshaping your industry? And Eva, why don't we start with you and your experience at Google?
Yeah, I think I'm supposed to talk about AI.
Okay.
I think sustainability is Wendi, yeah. So for AI specifically, I feel like everybody here today already experienced so much impact and change from AI. I don't need to exaggerate on it. There's so much changes, and I have to say there more are coming in the positive way. So maybe like 3 trends I Google, like which we focus on, and we also see a lot of the peers in the industry focus on. The first one will be word model instead of large language model. Second one will be robotics. The last one is quantum computing. So maybe just a little bit more detail on the first one, the word model. So all the models we interact today in like application phases is mostly large language model, which take like text, video, and images as input. The fundamental limitation of this type of model is it takes sequential input. So it doesn't really have a fundamental understanding of physics or the word. But Google is pushing very hard on the word model, which start from physics, understanding the word as a word, like as the word we are living right now. I know Meta is also pushing really hard on that. So once that mature in research, it will be pushed into application, maybe in several years, hopefully. I think that's another fundamental change of how we use AI. And then robotics, I think we all can see it coming, even though the robots are still a little bit stupid right now. And lastly, quantum computing. I think all companies are secretively investing in quantum computing. I'm not an expert on this at all, but I see the moves that Google and other tech companies are doing, and I just can't imagine how much change it will come. But maybe I'll wrap it up with let's have a positive view on this. I know there's some people scared of AI, or like maybe a little bit hate AI, don't like the change, but change is fundamental to the human involvement, whether you like it or not. So maybe we can be adaptive leader, like Harriet said, and lead the charge instead of being influenced by the charge.
Yeah, exactly. I will add to that as we think about AI on campus. That's also a challenge that is requiring us to think about in new ways and use an adaptive mindset, a change mindset to help navigate the campus to all of the issues that we'll have to face and all of the opportunities that we have in front of us with AI. So another huge one.
Right, right. Wendi, do you want to bring us back to sustainability a little bit and
Sure.
talk about that?
I think one of the biggest changes that is currently underway and is certainly continuing in sustainability is around the pervasiveness of the issue in business, no matter what kind of business it is. It used to be that sustainability was this thing off to the side that the environmental people worried about, and now it truly is intertwined with everything we do. Harriet mentioned climate education. I'm sure Shannon has to think about impacts of things like, increasing severe weather events and things like that on her supply chain. Certainly energy consumption associated with AI and data centers is a huge issue, and that's not going away. We're seeing huge...
Healthcare too.
Healthcare, sorry.
Weathers,
yeah, all of it. And it's just everywhere. We're seeing a lot of increased regulation, particularly outside of the U.S., around transparency and impact reduction when it comes to sustainability. Huge market drivers between public sector customers and large enterprises, are expecting their suppliers to be embracing sustainability and demonstrating progress. And I think one of the biggest changes is, like I said, it's gone from being just this little environmental issue off to the side to permeating everything. If you looked at my calendar for a typical week, I would have meetings with someone from supply chain and someone from HR and someone from our IT group and real estate and manufacturing and engineering and legal and you name it, and I interact with every part of the business, which is one of the coolest things about my job, but it's really just evidence of how pervasive this issue is, and it's going to continue to be.
Can I
Sure.
add on AI?
Please.
Yeah. Within healthcare, I think AI is already very much affecting everything from even insurance processing, appeals, things that payers are going to fight and say that they're not going to pay for. There's some great, there was a great article maybe 6 months ago in the New York Times about doctors who are using AI to counter that and loading papers to help say, here's the evidence. And so that is becoming more powerful and then becoming scaled. There is new technology that's coming within medical records to help with decision making, loading millions of patient records to say, here are the outcomes. And so that will influence how we all receive care and hopefully will help focus on more effective, efficient therapies and solutions. And I think it won't be too much far behind that patients are getting that kind of data to say, based on providers, our systems, what are some of the best choices they can make as consumers, which is going to just further push the competition within healthcare.
Great. Any other comments before we move on? Yes. Okay, good. All right. So in IOE, we often work at the intersection of a lot of different fields. So I want to turn to Wendi and Jackie and ask you, how do you bring IOE thinking into an interdisciplinary team, especially in spaces like sustainability or healthcare, or as we've been talking about in AI?
So I think it comes back to leveraging all of those things that we've been talking about. You know, we have that ability to see, you know, the whole system, to take the look at the big picture and also break it down. You know, we can see the forest and the trees, and I think, you know, sort of sharing that mindset with the teams that we're working with or leading really helps other people to understand, you know, the situation, where we are, what needs to be done. You know, I think the other thing that we are very good at doing, and I think Shannon alluded to this a little bit, is we speak multiple languages, right? We can speak the business language and help managers understand what we're talking about. We can speak technical language and help engineers and other technical people understand what we're talking about. You know, we have, you know, experience and knowledge with interacting with human beings, so we can help to, you know, I don't want to say persuade, but we can help our other employees and clients and other stakeholders to understand, you know, what we're dealing with and what we're trying to accomplish. So I think it comes back to using those skills that are inherent in all of IOE.
I'd like to pick up where Wendi did about the different languages, because I think that's absolutely true. And actually, very early on in my career, one of my mentors, Richard Coffey, who's here, I remember him so clearly saying, different parts of the organization in healthcare speak different languages. And, you know, at the front line, it's about a shift, a medication, a treatment. And then as you go up, the language has changed to productivity and, you know, efficiency. And then they go and it's the dollars. So I think IOEs can speak all those different languages, but also help translate between them. And that's, you know, again, a lesson I learned early on. I think about it every week, because that is absolutely something I think that is unique and really highly valuable about industrial engineers. The other way, though, that I think you can bring interdisciplinary teams together with IOE is the focus on the customer, which in our case is almost always the patient. And so thinking through, and you have different people who are very used to the way they always do, work things that have been structured for generations based on kind of old mentalities and old styles. A lot of how we deliver healthcare is set up around how the medical record was set up. And so, you know, trying to rethink that and trying to bring a group together, it gets to the innovation, but also interdisciplinary. If you say, what would the patient want? Or even better, if you bring a couple of patients in and say, what's your experience and how could we do it better? That just changes the whole framework, helps people think creatively, and ultimately brings people together because everyone is there for that reason.
Great.
Yeah, I just want to expand on one thing that Jackie did mention, she used the word connection, and I think that is one of the key strengths that IOEs can bring, and that is the ability to connect and make connections amongst the different stakeholders in whatever project that you're dealing with.
I was going to just add, I think I was going to use the word translator earlier, just because I do think there is kind of that ability to, we always talk about being able to take very technical problems, very analytical problems, and translate them to any audience. And so it's so critical to be able to kind of do that at the different levels, just like you talked about. I think that's so true.
Great.
I might add a thought there as well. Your mentioning of bringing some patients in, I'm completely off script here, but I think very relevant. I flash back to some work that I was doing when I was on the faculty at Penn State and running the Center for Integrated Healthcare Delivery Systems. And we were doing this large project on care coordination for patients with chronic kidney disease. And I think about maybe 2 or 3 months into the project, we brought together a round table of not only the patients with CKD, but also some of their family caregivers. And that one round table of bringing those patients in and their families with the physicians, with the nephrologists, and with the engineering team became almost the learning object for the rest of the research, to hear the people's stories. And I reflected about how, as industrial engineers, we also have this unique ability, it relates to the language as well, to help build a narrative that people can really see and feel and connect to. I think that that's also one of our superpowers, to do that, to be able to bring the various stakeholders together and try to identify what's going to translate the technical needs into, back to the people, the systems view, and how to make it better for people. So I think I just wanted to plus one that.
Storytelling. It really is.
It really is. To be able to do that is a skill, important skill.
Great. It's interesting that you mentioned research on end-stage renal disease and kidney transplants. I did some work on that, and we too interviewed patients and their caregivers. And what was interesting in our research is that there were some dramatic differences between the perceptions of the caregivers on the one hand and the patients on the other hand. And in particular, the patients that we talked to felt that they as individuals were more likely to survive 10 years longer than their caregivers thought they would, and that their kidney would survive 10 years longer than their caregivers thought it would survive. There's some technical reasons for that, but I think there are also, as Harriet alluded earlier, there's some social reasons for that as well. So at this point, though, I think I want to sort of stop asking questions myself and turn to our audience and see if you have questions. I'd ask you to raise your hand. It's a little hard for me to see because the lights are incredibly bright, but I'll do my best to call on you. And we have a couple of students who have microphones, and they'll be able to get to you as well. They're in the back. Okay, any questions? Somebody better ask a question quickly, because otherwise I'm going to call on somebody. We have one here and there's one over there. Yes, go ahead.
I was really delighted when you emphasized systems thinking, because I teach systems engineering, and you mentioned adaptive challenges. And I know where we're at, it's all about trying to break up a messy challenge into an integrated set of technical problems that can be solved to address the challenge. To what extent, system engineering is part of IOE. Now, to what extent have you brought systems engineering into your thinking?
Was that
yes.
more specifically for me? Yeah, sure. So, I did enough work with systems dynamics and systems modeling to understand that there are frameworks and theories there. And I'm not saying that I necessarily build a a model for those elements as I think about our leadership, but just understanding a recursive model, a rebalancing model, and those sorts of elements helps me to think, to be able to anchor, and I think just have more, as I say, coat hangers for ideas and needs across a problem space. So I think the way that it has stayed with me has been more an influence and a way of thinking about problems, as opposed to necessarily modeling the problems that we have with systems tools. So I do want to draw that distinction. And yet, I think being able to do that differentiates us from a lot of other scientists and a lot of other types of engineers. One of the things that I've understood at Harvey Mudd, where all of our degrees are in STEM, we have 14 degrees, all in STEM, and we have one general engineering degree. Okay? We don't have mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, just engineering. Students graduate with a degree in general engineering. But what it's helped me to see more clearly is that the places where there's industrial engineering in the campus is almost really outside of what our engineering department is. We have our CS faculty teaching lean and Kanban. The math faculty are working in operations research. And it's made me understand that probably as I look back across my career at R1s, the same could be said of other engineering disciplines in the College of Engineering. How do we get more industrial engineering content and understanding across all of the engineering disciplines? Because I think, frankly, I mean, just to put it candidly, I think the students suffer for it, right? The engineers suffer for it if they don't have this sort of systems view. So those are just a couple of my thoughts there.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we have another question here from Professor Seaford.
So I was actually trying to help you out and kill the silence, but I'll ask my question anyway. And I think Jackie alluded to it, saying Richard's course taught her about different languages. So I ask you, when did you decide you were going to become industrial engineers? Was there a particular course in the curriculum that drove it? Was it a life experience? When did you know this was going to be your calling? You might not know what career path it was, but when did you fall in love with industrial and operations engineering?
Before anyone answers this, the correct answer is IOE 201, which Larry teaches. So, okay.
201 didn't exist when I was there, so I get a pass. Well, you know, I think I could never have been anything other than an engineer. Anybody who knows me would say that. I remember once going to a family member of my dad's in Holland where they spoke not a word of English and had a whole wall of calipers and all kinds of things. And it had a quote, and I said, "What does that mean?" And my dad said, "To measure is to know." And I was like, okay, I'm home. This is me too. But for me, deciding IOE, so I applied right to the School of Engineering. That was the only place for me. What decided it for me, and I've never said this, and Dr. Chaffin is here, but I actually reached out and I was taking your class and reached out and said, what are the job opportunities? Are there jobs? What kind of things do people do with this degree? And somebody with the kind of experience and notoriety as Dr. Chaffin took probably, you know, a half hour to sit down and talk with me about what that world looked like. The world sounded really exciting, but really what was also compelling is the faculty having the interest in even an undergraduate student to have that kind of discussion and to kind of foster this path. So I've never said that I was going to tell you today.
Okay.
Sorry, it's kind of behind the podium, but that was what helped me decide.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I have a very different story. So my undergrad, I majored in math at a liberal arts college, and I loved math. I thought it was fun. And then I got to be a senior, and it was like, wait, what jobs are there for math majors? And at that time, if you weren't going to be a math teacher or an actuary, there really weren't a lot of things. So I went to the Career Counseling Center and did some of those tests that they administer, and I got a list of 10 jobs to explore, and one of them was industrial engineering. And at that point, I honestly had never heard of it. So I, did a little bit of research, and I landed a job back home in Rochester, New York in statistical quality control, and started part-time master's program at RIT in industrial engineering. And that's where I, fell in love with it and decided that was really the fit for me. So, I still think IOE is the, best kept secret around.
Sadly, I'd agree with that we have a PR problem. Yeah, but go ahead.
We definitely don't have a PR problem at Disney. If you look at the different theme parks, three of our theme park vice presidents are industrial engineers. Our head of resorts is an industrial engineer. We have IEs are everywhere. We have a huge amount. And I mean, it's so applicable from an operations perspective, but it's such a big company. But I would love to say mine's so much less thoughtful than you all. But I really wanted to work with people. I always loved math and science, but I didn't gravitate towards necessarily like working in something that was going to keep me in a lab. I really wanted to be with people, and I loved solving problems. And for me, it was just doing the research to understand more about it. I had not ever heard of it as well. But it was the, for me, the compelling thing about being able to work with people on a regular basis and help them.
Right.
Well, also, I think I've shared my story before, that my father was a pilot, and he just loved flying. And even he flew for Eastern Airlines, if anybody's old enough to remember Eastern. But even on his days off, we would go to the Atlanta International Airport, watch planes take off and land, and I would know the plane bodies. I could identify some of the engines. But my curiosities were always, well, how do they decide which flight attendants fly with which pilots? How do the suitcases get from the sidewalk to the correct plane? And long story short, those of course are systems problems. And as a master's student, I ended up working for American Airlines Decision Technologies, AADT, which became Sabre, and did the modeling for the baggage claim operations for Houston Airport. And I think, seeing that arc of both interest and then application, in-depth modeling, was something that I think early on solidified my interest in the field.
Okay, Eva?
I also have a childhood story to share. And I also echo to Shannon, it doesn't have a PR problem with me either. So I'm Chinese, and when I was growing up in China, how I learned English is through textbooks and tapes. There was like no CD, no DVD at that time yet. And there's a really, really old English textbook called Walk Around America. And that talk about a family in Michigan and their daily life. And through that, I learned English. So that was like one of the fundamental book. And in that book, the son of the family actually goes to U-M College of Engineering. Oh. So when I was 6 years old, I didn't know Harvard exists in the world. I didn't know MIT. I didn't know Yale, Oxford. I was only 6 years old, and I didn't have internet access. It was just me, my textbook, and my tape. At that time, I already know Michigan, and I already know like College of Engineering, even though I did not understand like what is engineering at all. So for me, that was like a really, really early seed and wonderful PR. Okay. Whoever did that back like 30 years ago. So I appreciate that. And when I was at the age of applying for my master's degree, that was such an obvious choice for me. And then coming to IOE, I think I always wanted something like interdisciplinary, like we just kind of talk about that. I think IOE is just a perfect starting point for so many different possibilities. It was a very easy choice for me.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody else? Yes, down here. What? Can we get a mic down here so we?
That's my son, by the way. Who's a freshman in the College of Engineering.
Okay.
So I'm scared.
Has he picked a major yet?
He wants to be an IOE.
Oh, great. All right.
No PR problem in my house. No.
Yeah, I'm here because of her. Happy to be here, by the way. I remember, actually, no, this isn't the time for storytelling. It's the time for questions. I guess for these students who are, well, the active students in Michigan IOE, do you have any advice for them on how they could prepare for going into this rapidly changing global environment, just with the, I guess, rapid technological changes, political changes, socioeconomic changes, all of that? What pieces of advice do you have to give the students who have yet to see it firsthand?
I don't think he's asking me. He gets plenty of advice from me. Okay. So I'll let the other panelists jump in.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I think there's so many things, and I have a college freshman here too. He's in Bursley, but LS&A. I'm working on it. But I think to me, especially your question about how to navigate the changes and the turbulence and, and those factors, I think to me it's staying a lifelong learner and knowing that when you finish and get that diploma, you are only starting your learning path. And so I think that the key to keeping up and staying nimble and staying positive through those changes is continuing to learn about what's happening in your field. And that's why even staying connected to this program is so important, to continue that learning. But also just continue learning from others as you are in the, multidisciplinary, and bringing people together is a superpower. Continue learning from those who are in it with you too.
Okay.
I think maybe to add on that, so specifically for AI, I think a lot of the negativity people might feel about AI is like, is AI going to replace my job? Am I going to lose part of my income or change my job unwillingly because of AI? I think the part I want to share is it's kind of difficult, but I think it's maybe have a very positive mindset towards change and think about what human can do better than machine fundamentally. So if you think about computer vision, the biggest breakthrough of computer vision is in 2012, AlexNet. And what is AlexNet? It's give you a bunch of cat pictures and ask the machine, is this a cat? Yes or no? Oh, yes, it's a cat. Fantastic. So after hundreds of years, millions of brilliant people work on computer vision, the biggest breakthrough we had is is this a cat? Yes, it's a cat. So you think about that, that can be easily done by a 5-year-old human being, but it takes so long for a machine to learn. So fundamentally, machine and human just very good and bad on different things. So think about what human is fundamentally good at. So we're really good at connecting dots from really far away. We're good at taking learnings and use it in another discipline. We're good at so many things that machines not good at. And it will take a while for the machines to catch up on us. So if you can unleash what human can do best and leverage the AI and the machine as your assistant, you can do so much more. So that's the positive mindset I'll encourage students to adapt when you are thinking about a job and how to tackle that job.
Thank you.
I'd add to that, not only, certainly as I discussed earlier, having an adaptive leadership framework, having a mindset to embrace and process change is important. But I'd maybe pivot and add to that You know, one of the things that I just really feel for the young people right now going through the challenging times that we are is that that they don't have the other few decades of experience on the planet that others of us have. And what is it that I feel has been beneficial have been opportunities to see a little bit more of the world and just talk to other people. And so two things that I'm always suggesting to, as I say at Harvey Mudd, my 919 nerds at Harvey Mudd is, are you going to study abroad? Are you going to go and see a little part of some part of the world, see anything, do anything? Where would you like to go? And just encourage them to go and meet and understand that the United States is not all that there is to the world. I think that's just so vital. And then the other part is embracing the arts, embracing the fine arts, performing arts, music. There's so many, we are near LA. There's so many opportunities to take in the arts, and it's just so restorative and so generative. And I think that those would be two things, in addition to all of the, closer in technical things. There's somewhere you're interested in going, find a way to go see something else in the world, and go and find some way to appreciate the great masters of arts.
Wendy, did you want to?
Sure. So I think the other thing I would add is, as you go through your education, don't only think about what the technical knowledge is that you're gaining, but what are the actual skills that you're gaining. We've talked a lot about the things that IOEs bring to the workplace. When I started at Xerox right after I finished my PhD here, in ergonomics. So I was hired to manage the ergonomics program, and about 6 months in, I had a meeting with the vice president of my organization, and he said, you have to decide, do you want to be an ergonomist for the rest of your life, or do you want to stay here at Xerox and grow your career? And 6 months out of my PhD, that was a terrifying conversation, because I had just spent 5 years of my life totally immersed in ergonomics. But it was honestly the best conversation I probably had in my career, because it opened my eyes to starting to think about what are those skills that I have developed over the course of my education that are not the technical skills, but the things like speaking different languages and connecting people and thinking about systems and all of those things that we gain from our time here. And it's been probably the best advice I ever got.
Great. So if I could add just my own personal perspective on this as a former faculty member, I think one of the other pieces of advice that I would give to all the students is get to know at least one or two faculty members very, very well. We're actually people. We enjoy meeting with students, and don't feel intimidated. That's our job, is to meet with students. So I would strongly encourage all of the students here to get to know at least one faculty member very well. Maybe work on a research project with him or her. Maybe invite them to your fraternity or your sorority or your dorm cafeteria. Get to know them on a personal basis. And one of the hardest things I ever have to do is to write a letter for somebody who took a course of mine but never said a word in the class and never introduced himself or herself to me. Because then all I can do is look up, oh yeah, they got an A-. I don't know what that really means. But so that's my personal advice. So I want to deviate a little bit from what we've talked about in the past. I want to just have a quick lightning round. You asked about what advice the panel would have for students. I wanted to ask, looking back on your education in IOE, is there anything, this is a question that mainly would be aimed at the faculty, and I can ask this because I have that keyword emeritus in front of my title. Is there any advice you would give to the faculty? Are there any holes in our education, any parts of our education that you think should be filled within the department before students get out into the non-academic world?
I can take it first. I think maybe encourage non-linear thinking. I feel like once you're in the environment or path for quite some time, and especially if you do really well on that, your thinking kind of just naturally stuck in that. So like, for example, when I was a data scientist, like all the best data scientists I know go through this data scientist, senior data scientist, principal data scientist, and become like a data science director. And I wasn't the best of all the data scientists when I just become a fresh data scientist. So I see them all following this path, and I decided to take a different path. And I become a consultant, and then I did different stuff. And then same, after I become a consultant, I see everybody in the consulting firm start to like associate consultant, and then become a manager consultant, and eventually junior partner and become a partner. And so many people just like, their vision is so narrow. Okay, I did this and I do so well, and I'm going to continue on this. But sometimes I feel like taking a non-linear path can give you like surprisingly wonderful experience and wonderful things. Like becoming partner isn't really the only place to become a principal data scientist, isn't the only way to unleash your mathematical thinking. There's so many different ways to tackle problems from different aspects. And sometimes non-linear could be the best.
Great.
So I'm not faculty, but can I give just a very quick answer
Absolutely,
for lightning round? You know, I think to me it is about, I lost my thought.
Okay.
I can go too. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go. I was just going to say, for me, it's leaning into the non-technical skills. So where are those? So those storytelling, learning how to build a presentation that, again, applies to a ton of different audiences, public speaking, it's those skills. So how do you incorporate those in addition to the analytical and the technical? I think that's probably the biggest opportunity I see for especially the newer industrial engineers who come to work for me. They haven't been in that kind of environment necessarily all the time. So giving them opportunities to do that would be a huge, huge help. I also think just interacting with people, especially coming out of COVID, that's not necessarily everybody's default setting anymore. We have definitely people maybe wanting to lean back a lot more and hide behind screens or phones or whatever. So setting up different opportunities for them to just have conversations and interact with people on a regular basis, socially, and I'm not saying anything else, but I think it's a great opportunity to learn how to network. You need to have those connections with people. So
That triggered it back.
Okay.
It was
There we go.
psychology. And, to me, one thing that I learned so much about is how people make decisions, how people behave, and how that interacts with the technical. And so that's exactly what I would say too, but specifically, I have a couple folks on my team who are from that psychology or even social work background, and it's such a great complement to the technical, the systems thinking. So maybe something to think about.
I guess I'd add to that, and Mark, I'd probably maybe take a small pivot or angle on the question. If I'm thinking about, as I have gone through the academy in these various roles and get to, deanship and president, it strikes me that earlier in my career as a faculty member, I didn't have a very full picture of what students' lives were like. Very bright students, very amazing students at all levels at Michigan, and still to become a faculty member, you're towards the outlier end, right? And I guess what I would get at is what I have seen in these other roles is that we don't really understand the student life side of being at a university very well as a faculty member. And just suffice it to say that there is a lot there. There are a lot of challenges, I think, for faculty members to understand, for example, the degree of food insecurity on a campus, the degree to which some students may not be participating in professional organizations because they have family responsibilities or need to support family or, to take a job in the summer that will, pay wages as opposed to another opportunity. Or, there are just so many aspects to the student life side that we don't see. And, not to be, negative here, but that there are just several problems that don't come to the fore, right? Whether it's with mental health or Title IX cases or, these other ways that students really need support. So I would say there's more reason to lean into the people's side, to try to draw students into community in ways that resonate with a particular, with the department. It's always, I think, about who's not present, who's not there and why, and what can we do to extend the table a bit and understand some of the challenges that students face and help to, help to navigate them into spaces of more opportunity.
Okay. Wendi, did you have anything? Okay. All right, so I hope everybody's enjoyed this session. It's been a session where we did not have a little green box around everybody. We could actually interact in person. And so on behalf of IOE, I want to thank our panelists for your insights and to our audience for your questions and your engagement. This conversation to me really shows how IOE can transform industries across healthcare, education, sustainability, AI, and supply chain. And so please take a minute and join me in a round of applause for our wonderful panelists.